Hello, everybody. Good evening to last session of Knowledge Plus in this 4 lecture series. So I hope everybody benefits from this lecture. And I'm a little bit sad because it's kind of the Knowledge Plus series is coming, this series is coming to an end. Definitely we'll come back again with more and more such lectures. I'll hand it over to the moderator today, which is none other than Nilesh Titte. Nilesh, over to you.
Wow, thank you so much, Lakshmi. And I think this is the last one in the series, right?
Yeah, today is the last one. We finished
Yeah,
3 lectures. Today is the last one.
correct. And it is such an exciting topic, right? The clinical or the scientific aspect of dispensing. And I'm very sure that we are going to have a great session ahead. And before even we introduce the speaker, I think let me introduce the panelists first. We have the living legend, Mr. Yashwant Sauji. I could have just said that he needs no introduction and I could have just moved forward, but I think that is injustice. So Yashwant is literally known as the living legend of Indian optometry, a very dear friend, a colleague, in fact, my partner in masterclass optometry as well as partner in crime. um, has won so many awards. He has won the Optometrist of the Award from Shankar Netralaya. He is the first practitioner to start Rose K contact lenses in India. His clinic is really revolutionary, and if you are an optometry intern, you would want to see his clinic. If you're lucky, directly go and visit. If not, at least take a virtual tour whenever you can. So an expert contact lens practitioner and also an expert in ophthalmic dispensing. So welcome, Yashwant. We will have your inputs towards the end in the panel discussion. Then we also have Kulbhushan Singh. Kulbhushan has been working with corporate for many years now. Currently, he is a product manager for Essilor Instruments division. He completed his optometry from All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Also done his MBA in sales and marketing. He has experience in educational programs, in terms of you know uh, pr- products, in fact dispensing products and marketing and selling product as well. He's worked as retail management consultant and so many different things within the corporate ladder. And finally, the speaker of the day, we have Anita Arvind, again a very good friend, a wonderful lady with a wacky sense of humor, I would say. Anita completed her optometry from the Elite School of Optometry, and recently she also completed her PhD from South Africa. So one of the few doctors in optometry in India currently. She's a co-founder and director of academics at Learn Beyond Vision, which is a new educational hub for upgrading your knowledge and skills. So that is something interesting. I just came across a couple of initiative they have started and looks very, very promising, Anita. She's also a freelance optometrist and optometry educator. She's known for her teaching skills. So in fact, I have been one of her fans, the way she conducts her lecture and the way she teaches. We worked together at Bharati Vidyapit for a few years. We had a great time, and all the students of Bharati Vidyapit, I'm sure, would be missing her the way she taught. So Anita, over to you. We are all ears. We want to listen to the clinical and scientific aspect of ophthalmic dispensing. All yours.
Thank you so much, Nilesh, for those lovely words for me. And my respect and adulation is mutual for you as well. I would like to take this opportunity to thank OCI and Essilor for considering me worthy for delivering this talk today in front of a wide audience of optometry students, dispensing optics students, ophthalmologists, and optometry academicians, as well as practitioners. I hope there are some takeaways by the end of this talk that I'm delivering. And before I start with my presentation, I would like to clarify this talk is purely my views and thoughts about the role of clinical excellence in optical dispensing. It has nothing to do with anybody or any organization. So it's pretty generic and totally what I view optical dispensing and how we as clinicians fit into ophthalmic dispensing. So let me share my screen.
Anita, as you're sharing your screen, like to say that there are few audiences outside India also for your talk.
Okay, that's very nice. Warm greetings from India for the audience outside India as well. So it's a moment of pride and privilege for all of us here that we have a wide range of audience too. So without much ado, let me begin with this talk. So role of clinical excellence in optical dispensing. So what is it basically? So the role plays a meaningful part in delivering our purpose to our patients. This is what I understand by our role as clinicians in ophthalmic dispensing. So how do we fulfill this role? In providing the knowledge that we have into ophthalmic dispensing. As you're all aware, currently in our country, neither optometry nor dispensing opticians are regulated. We are marching towards it soon. It is going to be regulated. We are going to be on a regulated platform. So it's high time we look at ophthalmic dispensing as an art and as a profession, as a standalone profession. So we need to fit into a professional code as in ophthalmic dispensing. So how do we, kind of blend our clinical knowledge into ophthalmic dispensing and not see as a separate entity? Because we have the knowledge and skill and we only have to incorporate that in ophthalmic dispensing system. So how do we achieve excellence in optical dispensing? The moment I say dispensing or optical outlet, things that flash to anybody's mind would be, free eye testing done here, or computerized eye testing done here, or a swanky optical outlet with high-end designer frames and, state-of-the-art equipment scattered around, and people with fancy, outfits, taking you through their showroom and showing different designer wares and stuff like that. It's high time. There's no harm in having a high-tech, state-of-the-art optical setups. It's high time we give it a professional identity. Now, how do we achieve this excellence in optical dispensing? It is not just one aspect alone. Dispensing is one part of it, but there needs to be a balance between different features, as in patient and customer care. We treat each patient or customer who enters into our optical setup or dispensing setup as an individual, as an entity by itself, and treat them with their unique needs and try to arrive at a solution for their dispensing needs. Dispensing service, this we offer based on the recommendations. Now, recommendation should come from us. It's not like the patient or the customer walks in and demands that I want a particular brand or I need something like this. You as a professional need to identify the needs of the person, the primary and the vocational needs, and try to justify that this particular thing that you are recommending would benefit them. And then there should be a coordination between the clinical and the sales team. Clinical as in those who provide the eye care services. It could be an optometrist or an ophthalmologist. And the sales team is one which constitutes the front desk people who are in direct contact with the customers. Now, when I say clinical, it doesn't mean that you're restricted into your clinical setup. It's always nice that you walk in with your patient and introduce them to the front desk staff and tell them that, I would like to recommend these many things to this patient of ours, and then the front desk staff can take that over from there. So there needs to be a balance between all these three elements so that there is excellence in optical dispensing. So what is the role of clinical excellence in optical dispensing? There are few things that I'm going to be taking you all through this lecture or a talk is analysis, recommendation, measurements, and implementation. So people say our clinical role ends with prescription writing and dispensing role starts with, dispensing up or recommendation. But I would say the role of dispensing optician or a dispenser starts right from the time of prescription writing, right? Now, prescription writing itself is an art, and it's high time we give it again a professional makeover and make it sound as a professional piece of information, because this is what gives you the idea that this person has a particular refractive error, and these and what will your recommendations be based on the prescription. So writing powers, it's very essential that you add 2 digits after the decimal. This is seldom followed. Now, I'm not talking about rules and regulations that I have formulated. This is the universal or the global rule or the British standards, which are taken as gold standards in dispensing optics. Spherical powers are mentioned with a capital DS or a D spherical. Cylindrical powers with capital DC or DCIL. Do not use degree symbol for axis. Example, you're writing axis 10. So do not put a degree sign over the 10, okay, while writing out the prescription. Else, if you're typing out a prescription, it's better to write 10 degrees as 010. If it's 110 degrees, it's just 110. Do not put a degree sign on top of it. This is to avoid ambiguity. That is, there'll be too much of confusion. I'll show you a couple of cases where there has caused a huge amount of confusion, loss also to the setup. Prisms, if they are mentioned, the base direction is very important, and splitting of prisms also should be done correctly. So when you split, it's base up and base down, and for horizontal prisms, it's base in, base out, which adds up. Also very important that we start mentioning the IPD, the interpupillary distance, as well as the vertex distance. In fact, in a regulated environment, if a prescription does not have the vertex distance for powers above plus or minus 5 diopters, the prescription is not entertained at all. You cannot dispense a pair of spectacles. So these are kind of mandatory things that we need to follow. So what I'm trying to explain is plus 1 diopter is not written as plus 1.0. That is wrong. Again, not 1.00. Now, many people claim that if I have not put a plus sign, it's understood that it is 1. This is not mathematics. This is dispensing. In dispensing, symbols play a very important role. So without a plus symbol, it doesn't make any sense. It could be minus also. Tomorrow, the same person can claim it was minus, but I just forgot. You can't be careless at this state. So plus 1 diopter is definitely written as plus 1.00 and nothing else. So here are a couple of examples where, mistakes are often made, and these are something which are encountering day in and day out, and high time we change our outlook and put in the right form. So here neither symbol is written, we do not know, even the axis is 2. Even if I assume that this is a plus 2 diopter cylinder, it's 90 in one eye and 180 in the other. High chances of it not being correct at all. We do not encounter. There's no mention of IPD over here, no instructions given. Another classic example where the cylindrical correction of the distance magically disappears in the near part. I don't know what is the logic behind people thinking that if there is a cylindrical correction, it is meant only for distance correction and not for near. Again, there is a confusion in the reading. If you see that there is difference between the two ads, there you could have different additions in both eyes, but there is too much of confusion because this prescription is wrong and cannot be entertained or dispensed. Another classic example where you mention a degree. Now this it reads like 10 degree, but it could be 100 as well. So there are high chances of you interpreting this prescription wrong. And the person who writes it also has written and created so much of confusion. To avoid that, you need to follow a standard procedure, which is a universal or a global standard. So this is how a prescription should read. And this is just a rough thing, and you can modify it the way it suits you and your practice. So name, age is mandatory. Right eye, left eye should be specified. Distance correction should contain columns for spherical, cylindrical, the axis, prisms. Even if it is not being prescribed, a dash or simply nil, not applicable. Visual acuity mention should be there. Near vision also, you see the cylindrical correction mentioned in the distance as well as the near portion, unless and until it is totally difficult or a complex prescription which involves a different kind of complex dispensing. It's totally different. You write out different prescriptions. You can do that also. IPD measurement should be mentioned. There should be a column for that as well as vertex distance. So it's high time that we write the prescription properly. It all starts from here. If we give it a professional outlook, I'm sure in the long run, we'll all have a universal platform and we all blend into the regulated platform very easily. Otherwise, it'll be a tough time and we'll be struggling and probably end up behind bars because anybody can sue us for writing out wrong prescriptions in the near future. Next, the most important aspect for us as clinicians is recommendation. So what forms the basis of recommendation? Everybody says, you have to recommend, but there needs to be some basis wherein you will place your recommendation at. So the recommendation comes from prescription analysis. And for that, the first step that is required is correct prescription. So first thing, when you have a prescription in hand, either it comes from another practice or you have written down the prescription as a clinician, you need to check if the prescription is written out correctly. Are there any mistakes or clarifications that are required? If it is incorrect, you can simply dispose of that case saying that you need to get the correct prescription or they need to go for a re-examination. Next important part is you classify a prescription whether it is a low, medium, or a high prescription, because your ophthalmic lens design that you're going to be recommending is going to be based on this aspect. And also you need to know whether the patient is a first time spectacle wearer. Next comes the dispensing problems. When I say dispensing problems, there are two aspects to it, namely the optical and the mechanical dispensing problems. Optical is from the dispenser. You as a dispenser, what would you face problems with this particular dispense? And mechanical is what the wearer would face. Now, optical problems could be something like, okay, if I give this person a high refractive index lens, it comes with the disadvantage that the Abbe value is going to be low. So there is high amount of dispersion that is going to be occurring. And if this person is into night driving and he has problems with lights and other reflection problems and stuff like that, now will this help him? So you have to think about those problems, how we are going to be alleviating his problems. Mechanical is the patient's concerns, the weight of the spectacle frame and the lens put together, then the cosmesis, all these from the, as a wearer, what would they face? Okay. And then you need to work out the solutions also. If there is a problem, there is going to be a solution. So you need to have a blend of what solutions you're going to be offering for the optical as well as the mechanical problems that this dispense is going to face. Next comes the frame selection and then the measurements that are required to, put the dispense together for the final dispense. So unfortunately, the system is different in most of the practices where a customer or a patient walks into an optical setup and they're straight away led to the frame section and they're allowed to choose. I mean, you can choose, this is this range, this is this mid range, this is the high end designer, where you can choose whatever you want and you can come back and then we will decide. But it's high time the recommendation goes the other way. There's no harm. People have, something which is fashionable. Somebody wants a cat eye, no matter how it is going to be looking, or the final outcome may not be so satisfactory, but if they want something, you need to fit in and try to optimize the lens design into that particular frame. There's no harm in that. But the first recommendation should come from your end. It makes a big difference in the final dispense. And then, of course, you need to keep in mind the wearer's expectations as well as the visual demands. And if the person is a previous spectacle wearer and they're very comfortable and they want another pair similar to the one that they are wearing, so you need to check on certain aspects, namely tints, the coatings, the what form of lens they are wearing, the refractive index that they are accustomed to. So you need to Fosimeter to check for the optic center. Sometimes, people are accustomed to wearing decentered optic centers in most of the cases. And now if you try to center it, the eyes may not take it up as well. So you need to replicate the way it is. At times they say, I wear these pair of glasses, they're perfect for me, I just want you to replicate. So when you replicate, you have to keep all these factors in mind. And of course, the patient's PD, the frame shape that he's being used to, the frame size and frame type. Sometimes it's very difficult to match the present ones that a person is wearing. So you need to keep all these factors in mind when you want to replicate another pair of spectacles. So next most important factors is the one which affects the lens appearance. Now, every spectacle wearer wants to look, feel, and see good. Now, how is it going to happen? Because there are a couple of factors which make the appearance of the lens very pretty or cosmetically very acceptable. Now, what are these factors and how are they under our control? Namely, the lens form, the refractive index, the minimum blank size or the minimum uncut lens size, the lens shape, centration, and anti-reflection coating. So I'm going to run through each one of these points and tell you how this affects the final appearance of the lens that you're going to be dispensing. When you talk about lens form, how do we know that this is the form of the lens? I hope you all understand when I say form of the lens, there are two basic forms of lens, flat lenses and curved or meniscus lenses. So you can always ask, how does it matter whether it's a flat lens or a meniscus lens? Absolutely no problems at all. You can make a lens in n number of forms that you want, right? Within the meniscus, within the flat form, whatever. But I learned a very valuable lesson very early when I entered this profession. When I was a fresh graduate and my first job was with an optical setup. I thought I was equipped with all the knowledge under the sky and was ready to face the world. But one simple dispense changed my entire outlook about dispensing. I look up to dispensing with great respect and awe ever since. Wherein this patient walks in and says that I broke one lens. And this one had a similar power to this. Just fix this up. It was a very simple thing. Of course, I didn't have to fix up because I was a clinician and we had a big optical setup. They only had to replace it. They replaced it and he wore it. I checked the posimeter, the powers were same and everything was brilliant. I checked his vision in with the vision chart as well. It all sounded perfect. But when he wore those glasses, he said, I'm just not happy with these. I said, probably we were adjusting, trying to do n number of things. And then I said, you go back, probably this is a new lens, you can get adapted to it. He walked back again the next day and he just threw the pair of glasses and said, I'm just not happy with this. What has gone wrong with it? And then after much contemplation as to what would have gone wrong, we identified that we gave the wrong form of lens. He was accustomed to wearing a flat form lens and we gave him a meniscus lens without giving it a thought. So how did we come to know about this? By this very simple piece of equipment which every optical outlet should have and should possess, is this Geneva lens measure. It simply measures the front and the back surface power. With that you can get to know the base curve with which the lens has been formed. So this I learned very, very early. So I don't want anybody else facing this problem, because some people are pretty sensitive to even changing the form of the lens. If they are used to a particular form of lens and they are absolutely comfortable, do not try to, put in some new lens design or form and try to change it. They may not accept. So this is a very a wonderful piece of equipment for me. It's my absolute favorite. I say even for my students, the first thing that I teach them after hand neutralization is perhaps using the Geneva lens measure. Next come the refractive index, and all of us are dinned into this fact: higher the refractive index, thinner the lens is going to be. Why? Because they have smaller sacs and hence they appear flatter. So also the problem with higher refractive index lenses are that the Abbe value or the V value is going to be on the lower side, so they cause a lot of dispersion of light. So again, another point. So one lens broken, if a person walks in and if he's used to a particular refractive index, just like he's used to a particular form of lens, how do you know that this is the refractive index that he is wearing? You can identify or differentiate between a glass ophthalmic lens and a plastic ophthalmic lens. But again, under glass and plastic, there are n number of refractive indices that are available. How do you go about knowing it? Again, the Geneva lens measure plays a very important role in this. There's a very simple formula that you all need to know. I'm sure most of you are aware also. The refractive index is nothing but 1 plus 0.523 into Fp divided by F1 plus F2, where N is the refractive index of the lens material. Fp is the back vortex power of the lens, which you measure with the lensometer or fosimeter. F1 and F2 are the front and the back surface powers, which you measure with your Geneva lens measure. In case it is a plastic lens and you want to know what is the refractive index, you need to replace the 0.523 by 0.490. So you can find out the refractive index of the unknown material. So this comes in handy. So this is where we use our clinical knowledge in providing optical excellence, I would say. These are very small things which slips our mind and we just go blank at times. We don't know where and how to apply our knowledge and skill that we have obtained into practice. So there is a huge gap at most of the places, or most times I would say. So we need to keep ourselves sharp and abreast with all this knowledge in order to provide excellent services to our patients and customers who walk into our optical practice. Another important factor is the minimum blank size or the minimum size uncut. So choosing the correct blank size plays a very vital role in dictating the thickness of the lens when glazed. Okay, to produce a finished lens, what do we need to do? Semi-finished lens blanks must be surfaced to give the desired prescription power. Now this formula that I have written out here, I'm sure most of you are aware of this. What is the minimum size uncut or the minimum blank size? Is nothing but the difference between the patient's PD and the frame's PD plus the longest lens diameter plus 2 mm. All of us would have memorized this and arrived at this is the minimum blank size or the minimum size uncut. But where do you put this knowledge to use? So a simple question for all of you out there. Can you answer this for me, please? Paula, could you just put out this poll question?
Yeah,
so
now
I asked you.
I can see the question.
The minimum blank size is significant for which lenses? You need to know this because we all memorize, we are very good at memorizing formulas or whatever calculations that we have. But where will you put this to use? And why are we even talking about minimum blank size? How important is it? Why is it significant? Is it significant just for positive lenses, just for negative lenses, or for both of them?
I think we need more people to answer. There are only around 20 of them who answered it.
Oh, okay, then I need, what have the majority answered?
Both, Anita.
Both, okay.
12 of them have answered both, and 9 of them are positive lenses, and there is no response for negative.
Okay, fine. So let us know what the answer is. We all need to be familiar with boxing system. Boxing system is not for you to score marks in your dispensing paper or optometrics optics paper and then forget about it. Boxing system is a universal system that is followed in the optical dispensing world. We all go by boxing system measurements. Every frame that you see on the temples, you have the boxing measurements that are given, 52 box 18 or 42 box 18. What does it tell you? It tells you the frame PD, the A size, and the distance between the lenses. They all go by the boxing measurement. Boxing system is very simple. You box the frame. In the sense, you draw tangents, and those becomes the extreme values. The A size is the horizontal value, the B size is the depth of the frame, right? Frame PD, when I keep mentioning frame PD or box centration distance, it's nothing but the A size plus the distance between the lenses. That will give you the frame PD. The distance from this geometric center to this geometric center is the frame PD. And this is the datum line, okay? So this is the effect of improper blank size. When you don't factor in the size uncut or the blank size, what happens is you end up giving a lens. If you choose a large diameter uncut lens and you try to fit into the frame, you'll end up getting a thicker lens. This is so unsightly as against this. Both are of the same power, but different blank sizes. I'll tell you what is the difference. Now, how does blank size matter? Central thickness comparison in positive power lens. This table will give you an idea because blank size matters in positive lenses. What happens when we choose a size uncut lens? What happens is you cut the periphery so that you fit the lens into the frame. Now, when you're cutting a negative lens, you're cutting the thickest part of the lens. So the thinnest part is the mid portion that is going to be fitting into the frame. So we are not bothered. When it's minus lens, the blank size really doesn't matter. But when it is a positive lens, you're cutting the thinnest part of the lens and retaining the thickest part of the lens. So blank size definitely matters for positive lenses. This table, for example, if you see over here, if you take a +6 diopter lens and you just take a 65 mm stock lens and try to fit that into a frame, the central thickness is going to be 7.3 mm. But if you choose a small diameter 50 mm lens and try to, of course it is dependent upon the frame that is being chosen, but this is just a comparison to tell you that there's so much of central thickness saving. The final outcome, remember I told you every person who wears a pair of spectacles wants to look, see and feel good. That will happen only with the right choice of lens that you're going to be offering. So minimum blank size or the minimum substance uncut that you're talking about matters for positive prescriptions. So the rule of thumb is that minimum blank size for minimum thickness of plus lenses, right? Okay. Next comes the diameter and shape of lens. Lens thickness is directly related to the size of the finished lens. So the central thickness of a plus powered lens or the edge thickness of a minus powered lens is proportional to the square of the finished lens diameter. So when you talk about recommending the lens shape, for hyperopes, you recommend a round or an oval shape, and for myopes, a rectangular shaped lens does justice. Now, to further explain this, in case of a high plus power or a high minus power lens, if I were to recommend a narrow beam measurement frame. So for a high plus lens wearer, what will happen? It will expose the thickest edges. Okay, whereas the same frame, when I recommend that for a high minus lens prescription, it is going to be resulting in thinner edge design. So obviously your recommendation is going to go based on the prescription, right? So how a similar frame for both high prescriptions, how does the final outcome differ? Here in plus lens is going to be very unsightly, hideous looking pair of spectacles. Here it is going to be neatly and cosmetically appealing pair of glasses for a high minus power. So what you recommend really matters, because this you would be knowing. Now for a person to visualize, a novice or a customer or a patient to visualize is difficult. So you as a clinician need to use your judgment that how the final outcome is going to be, and base your recommendation to your patient or customer. Next comes centration. Now you need to select a frame whose box centration distance matches the patient's PD. Okay. Now a patient, for example, a patient with a +5 diopter prescription chooses a frame which is 42 box 18, which means that the frame PD is 42 plus 18, which is 60 mm. And what you measured the patient's PD is 59 mm. So here it kind of matches. 1 mm is not a big deal. But when you check the monocular PDs of this patient, it is right PD is 32 mm and the left PD is 27 mm. Now what happens when you try to center these into the frame? Now this is the result. Both eyes have the same prescription, but if you see, there is a difference in thickness between the two lenses because of asymmetric decentration, because of the asymmetry in the pupillary distance that you have measured. So the rule of thumb again over here is, when dealing with medium to high prescriptions, 3 mm decentration per eye should be considered maximum to attain cosmetic acceptability. Anything less than 5 diopters doesn't really matter, but beyond that, even the slightest decentration which will result in thicker looking glasses. Again, you have to remember, everybody wants to look, see and feel good. Another last one is the anti-reflection coating. So unacceptable levels of loss are considered to be occurring if there is a reflectance of more than 12% of input light. So an anti-reflection coating is always recommended when dispensing a material which has a refractive index 1.6 or more. This indicates when you have a 1.5 index, the transmission is 92. There is a loss of 8% of light. Whereas the higher you go, 1.9, the max in glass lens, the transmission is just 81. Close to 20% of light is lost. And also a spectacle wearer encounters a couple of ghost images. 5 different types of ghost images trouble a spectacle wearer, all of which can be either minimized or eliminated by anti-reflection coating. So from the patient's point of view, they only see the cosmetic part of it, but for you as a dispenser, you think like a dispenser when you're dispensing a pair of glasses. You need to think about the loss of light as well as the ghost images that are going to be troubling the spectacle wearer. So here is the optical problem, you're offering a solution, and mechanical problem is the patient complaining of cosmesis. So here both the problems have arrive a solution by giving anti-reflection coating, right? Next is frame selection. Again, I would reiterate that you need to choose a frame whose box centration distance is equal to the patient's PD. Why? The above ensures that there is good centration of lenses. Remember the previous example where asymmetric PDs resulted in a decentered lens causing a thicker lens on one eye and a thinner lens in the other, despite the prescription being similar. Also minimizes decentration required and allows the smallest possible blank size. Now when it comes to frame shape recommendation for hyperobes, again round or oval would be ideal. Myopes, a rectangular shape again, and avoid aviators and quadras in prescriptions with oblique cylinders. This could be another basis for your recommendation. So this is just a pictorial representation of showing you the matching of box centration distance with that of the patient's PD. Patient's PD is the interpupillary distance. Box centration distance is the nothing but the geometric center of this frame to the geometric center of the other eye, or nothing but A size plus DBL will give you the frame PD. Another important factor where we need to pay attention to is the bridge area. So a small thing that I would like to recommend is when you notice that the person who's going to be wearing a spectacle has a big nose, you go in or suggest a wide bridge. One with thin nose, a narrow bridge. Someone with flat nose pads on frame would be ideal. A plastic frame where the shape fits the nose. So this area is very important. How do you, kind of recommend and give the best? This is a snug fitting plastic frame. This is a nose on pad bridges. Temple length is again a very neglected factor. You have so many people coming up with sore areas behind their ears. Why? Because of tight fitting temples, or the temple length or the temple bends incorrectly. Here it is kind of lifting off. this part of the spectacle frame should follow the contour of the ear and not dangling or hurting or pinching against the skull, as in this case. And here, if you see the temple length, it is bending too much ahead of the ear point. It should bend over here and run behind the ear. This is again an incorrect temple length. Okay, when the temple length is too long, you can always shorten the length, but when it's too short, you cannot lengthen it. So you need to suggest an appropriate frame with an appropriate temple length. So you need to pay attention, because there are very many cases, me being passionate about this field, whenever I come across a spectacle wearer, I end up noticing how is his a bridge area, how is his temple length, and keep noticing probably he's wearing the wrong pair or any such thing. That's where my mind keeps going. Nevertheless, this is the fitting triangle. We all need to understand that when you have a spectacle wearer, the spectacle touches the face only at 3 points. 1 at the bridge area and 2 at the ear points. Nowhere else the spectacle is supposed to be exerting any kind of pressure or touching the face. Many cases you find that the temples are just so snugly fitting that they kind of compress the sides of the face. And when they remove the spectacle frame, there is deep grooves engraved into the skin. And this in the long run is going to create problems. Okay, that's the wrong recommendation of frame. Again, I had come across a patient who was given a wrong pair of spectacles, and he said that these are really hurting. And the person who was handling this patient said, the frame is perfect, sir. We have no complaints with the frame. Very many people are wearing. It's just that your face is round. It's like, ulta chor kotwal ko dante kind of situation, where they are not accepting that a wrong pair of frame was dispensed to this person. Rather, you're blaming that and kind of body shaming this person that they're quite chubby, that it is the flesh is eating into the frame. It's the other way around. So you need to understand that nowhere the spectacle frame should exert any kind of pressure. Even if it is resting here, it should distribute the weight equally and not create undue pressure or cause any kind of soreness along the nose or anywhere where at the ear points too. So you need to pay attention to this. Another last important factor is facial and frame measurements. This is very important to understand the compatibility of face to the frame chosen or vice versa, and to be able to understand the facial symmetry or asymmetry so as to suggest the appropriate frame, and to be able to order a bespoke spectacle frame. The last point is where, if you really want to create an exclusive or a customized pair of spectacle frame, you have some 40 odd measurements that you need to take for the face and frame in order to create. And now with the availability of 3D printers, it is going to be it is already fashionable in the West, wherein they have bespoke spectacle frames. It will soon catch up in our country as well. So wherein, they are very specific to that particular person's, so many measurements are taken and a spectacle frame is created. But for the rest of us who do not have, are going to be dispensing bespoke spectacle frame, you need to have certain basic facial and frame measurements, that knowledge that you need to know, so that you base your recommendation based on these. So there are a couple of very simple equipment. You don't have to invest in fancy equipments in order to take out these facial and frame measurement. This is a Reese Fairbanks facial measurement ruler, and the one to the right is the frame measurement ruler. This is from Abdo College, UK, and this is very commonly used there, where this field is pretty regulated. But even if you do not have these frames, you can still go ahead in making certain assessment about the facial features of the spectacle wearer. I will tell you. Most important thing, I've been stressing on measurement of the interpupillary distance and noting it down in your prescription pad. Most important is the monocular PD, because this gives you an idea if at all there is any undue asymmetry between the monocular PDs. It is quite natural to encounter asymmetry in monocular PDs. Very rarely you will come across somebody with symmetrical monocular PDs, and this is quite natural and normal. Okay, and this is very important in spectacle dispensing to measure the monocular PDs. You can do that by using a simple PD measurement ruler, or
you can invest in a good pupillometer. Now, this is very, very important to have a pupillometer where you do a large volume of progressive addition lens dispense or aspheric lens dispense, where they're dependent on monocular PDs. In the long run, we all need to have a pupillometer, and if that doesn't work at times, you need to be adept at taking monocular PDs. Again, I would say don't go by just one reading. You need to take at least 3 measurements to arrive at a conclusion. Next important facial feature, I would say, with regards to placement of the spectacle frame on the patient's is the crest height. This controls the vertical position of the frame front. Now, what is crest height? Is where the frame is going to be resting on the face. This is my crest height. Some will have high crest height, some will have low crest height. Now, children's who have a underdeveloped nasal bridge will have a lower crest height. Now, when you fit a high crest height frame on a person who has a lower crest height, it is going to be just dropping down, right? So you need to choose an appropriate frame. So this is the frame measurement for that. See, I'm sure for some of you, this may sound really new to you. So don't get hassled by it, but be aware that there's something called crest height, and it matters how the spectacle frame sits on the patient's face. So for children, usually the crest height is lower. This diagram over here shows that this is a case wherein there is negative crest height. So you have to choose an appropriate frame which sits decently in front of people with low crest height. Next one is bridge projection. This is very important as it controls the horizontal position of the front in order that it fits away from the lashes. Most often you encounter that lashes of people are brushing against the back of the lens, and they kind of dirty the lenses, even scratch the lenses. You might be arguing that how can lashes scratch the lenses, but with dust and grime and cosmetic things used on the lashes also can create marks on it and permanent damage to the lens. So that is again based on the selection of your frame. Okay, you have two types. Either you can have a positive bridge projection or a negative bridge projection. What is positive bridge projection? Is the nasal bridge is beyond the lashes. Negative is where the lashes are going beyond the nasal bridge. So how can you solve this? By choosing a frame with an appropriate bridge projection. Okay, so this is a frame when the bridge of the nose protrudes beyond the lashes, and this is the bridge you will choose when the eyelashes protrude beyond the bridge of the nose. So be aware of this. Again, to check for bridge projection, you'd only have to look at the profile of the patient. You do not require any special gadget or equipment to measure bridge projection. This is just by observation you can take this call. Next important thing is the pantoscopic tilt. This measurement determines the angle of side of the frame when it is in primary position of gaze. So again, this is a fancy piece, the Fairbanks ruler, which is used. Again, there are so many companies offering you the pantoscopic tilt measuring gauges, which they're happy to give it to you. So make use of that. Now, there are certain important measurements for dispensing pals, namely the fitting height and the monocular PDs. So this is very, very important. So you're measuring the fitting height from the center of the pupil to the lowest point of the frame, which is the datum line. Okay, and also you also ensure that for every 2 degrees of pantoscopic tilt used, a fitting height should be lowered by 1 mm. Okay, I have a poll question here. Paula, if you can just share it.
Anita, 5 minutes.
Yes, just a minute.
Yeah, I'll just wind up after this soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's visible, Anita, now.
Yeah. So if the optic center of the wearer measures 18 mm from the bottom of the frame and the pantoscopic tilt is 6 degrees, then the optic center should be adjusted too. It's just that I mentioned in the previous slide. So for every 2 degrees, you should lower the optic center by 1 mm. So the answer is 15 mm. I couldn't wait.
Yeah, many of them have said it right, except for few who have said 16 and 17. Many of them have said 15.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll move over. This is just a break kind of question. So again, next important thing, remember I did mention that your prescription pad should carry the vertex distance measurement. Now vertex distance measurement again doesn't require a fancy equipment. This picture to the left does show a distometer, which is traditionally used to check the vertex distance. If you do not have any scale which is like this, can also measure the vertex distance. It's not very complex to measure the vertex distance. This affects the effectivity and the performance of the lens, so it is very important and mandatory to write it down. Also for a progressive, in the context of progressive addition lens dispense, shorter vertex distance will require a long corridor and vice versa. So this we have already covered. So for PALS, decreased pantoscopic tilt will require a longer corridor and vice versa. So this is a pantoscopic tilt measuring gauge, and most companies will offer it free of cost to dispensing units, so you can make use of it. Okay, and also facial wrap is very important. Usually measures 5 to 7 degrees or the face form angle, they would say. It brings the near zone closer to the eye, thus optimizing the lens performance. Now, again, I'm just winding up. These are one of the last slides that I have. So based on all that we have seen, there are many other things also that we can discuss. I can speak all day long, but that wouldn't be permitted now, given the time constraint that we have. I just want to stress upon few things. Again, for professional dispensing practice, you do not need something high end. There are certain high-end equipments that are also in big practices where the volume of dispensing is also as such, which demands the need for such equipment. But if you have a very simple and a humble setting, then you need to have certain basic equipment also to have a professional dispensing setup or practice, like the very my favorite rather, Geneva lens measure, the PD ruler, the pupillometer, lensometer, good quality lensometer, frame heaters and frame repairing or adjustment pliers sets, pantoscopic tilt measuring gauge, and a set of facial and frame measurement gauges. And also a tablet in your setup is also a good idea, because most of the lens designs that come are app based, wherein they kind of calculate the head and the eye movement, optimize that, and the app kind of picks up the movements of the eye and then suggests that a particular lens design would fit in for this patient. So a tablet also serves as a very versatile piece of equipment in your dispensing practice. With more and more brands coming up with app-based services, it's a good idea to invest in a good tablet or an iPad. Also, tips for a successful spectacle dispense: assess the consumer's need, analyze the prescription thoroughly, select and recommend appropriate lens and frame options, know your products, their applications and limitations, guide the consumer to proper choice of products. Lifestyle dispensing is a key to consumer satisfaction. Be adept at taking appropriate facial and frame measurements. So practice, practice, and practice until you reach there. Okay. So finally, treat patients, colleagues, company representatives with the enthusiasm, respect, and cleanliness you would afford to your friend or relative. And always remember, all these three aspects go hand in hand in order to, provide excellence in dispensing. It is not just dispensing alone, or just customer care alone, or just the clinical or the sales team. All of us need to work in tandem and in unison, and with the sense of responsibility and cooperation in order to provide best for our patients and customers. So with this, I would like to hand over the session to the moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anita, as usual. Awesome. But I must appreciate it was really very thorough, comprehensive take on the scientific or the clinical side of dispensing. We talk about, the aesthetic side a lot, but I think this is so very important. And probably this is what separates us from someone who has not studied the science of dispensing. So I think if we give importance to this aspect, we could probably do much better job in our clinical dispensing, right? थोड़ा सा nostalgia लग रहा था ना, that I'm listening to ophthalmic lenses and things like that. Nowadays, very rarely we listen to ophthalmic lenses, but I personally enjoyed, and I'm sure all those who are listening to the talk would have enjoyed. And your passion comes through when it comes to ophthalmic lenses very clearly. I'm sure you would have spoken for another hour also if I did not remind you. But yeah, I think this is how passionate we need to be when with our science and with our subjects, right? So I'm going to invite Yashwant and Kulbhushan also. Guys, you can start your cameras and you can unmute yourselves.
Can I ask a question, Nilesh?
Okay, before even we invite, Lakshmi cannot hold herself. So go on.
I want to ask how Anita breathes talking so fast.
I think she's a classical singer, so she has learned a knack of breathing,
Breathing, is it?
in between that fraction of the fraction of second where you take a breath and you continue singing. So she's breathless.
I was feeling breathless just listening to
I
her.
was hard pressed for time, and
Time, I
especially
know,
when
yeah.
Nilesh
I
is
thought-
around, he would just stop me, and I wanted to complete my lecture and not give away just like that. I wouldn't compromise on.
I so wish I was so strict, the way you're portraying. I just so wish I was like that. Anyway, so can we have Yashwant and Kulbhushan also? Guys, are you there?
So
Yes,
we are there.
go on.
I'm sure you enjoyed the talk as much as I did, right?
Of course, yes.
Lovely.
There is one complaint though. I mean,
Bolo.
panelists on Anita's talk show, they are mere showpieces. She's
What will
covered
they do?
everything.
What will they do? No, but I'm sure there is something that both of you will add. I know that. But I think I like the way she covered everything, like from the prescription and then the basic stuff and how you can take care of, and also, debunk certain myths, especially blank size calculation, etc. So I'm coming to you, Yashwant, first. I mean, in your practice, we've learned the theory aspect and we learned what we need to do. But in your practice, abhi jitna humne suna, usme se what is your take on that? Which are the important things that you found out of all the things you learned in practice in your 25 years of practice?
Okay, Anita had her initial slide on prescription writing. And
Huh.
we all can, I mean, it's a very important aspect, but we don't pay too much attention to it.
Correct.
And Anita, I would like to add few points which I wrote down when you were talking. If I had it my way, I would have had two columns, one for the IPD measurements and one for fit at PD. Because as you rightly covered, if a patient is wearing incorrect IPD in the earlier prescriptions and if the bar is very high and you suddenly correct it to the right IPD, the specs are going to be a disaster. So slowly you have to get them into the right IPD along with some eye exercises. And I also realized with experience, Nilesh, is as a clinician, we need to write the near vision power as well as the ad.
Okay.
Because sometimes, the patients may prefer to make their glasses elsewhere with an optical dispenser.
Mhm.
And while calculating, they make a mistake in making the writing the ad or the near power.
Mhm.
So don't just say ad +2 or just write the near vision. If you can write ad and near vision both, it helps. Another thing I've learned again by experience is always write your prescriptions in negative cylinder. Because irrespective of whether you write it in positive cylinder or negative cylinder, the
surface
dispenser is going to convert it into negative cylinder and then dispense the glasses. And while conversion, they often make mistakes.
So you're trying to minimize the errors at any level, right? Okay.
And the last point in prescription writing is vision is rarely written. At least in Nagpur, I can say in very good eye clinics, I'm not talking about the usual eye clinics, but very good eye clinics, only 10% people write the vision. I don't know why. I mean, what are they scared about? I think they're scared about their quality of refraction.
So the visual acuity has to be mentioned without any.
Definitely.
Without
And
fail.
Anita, I liked one point that you covered. As optometrists, in optical dispensing, we need to be involved right from the start till the end. So you may not actually go to your dispensing area and dispense the glass to the patient, but make sure you're involved. You instruct your dispenser that this is the kind of frame that I'm looking at. And once you select the frame, give me a call, just step outside for a minute, approve the frame or reject it, ask them to select again, do whatnot, and then even approve the lens that the dispenser and the patient would have mutually agreed upon. So it should be your final word. That is very, very important. So anything else, Nilesh, you wanted me to cover?
So as a consultant, it is your decision and also your responsibility in a way to ensure that the patient is getting the right frame, right lens, the right combination, which is visually and
fact,
clinically
Nilesh,
equally good.
If I mean, at the cost of sounding immodest or rude, in my practice, the patients are not allowed to select their specs completely by themselves. So I tell them, if you want to use your brains and select specs, might as well go to an optical shop. We might even give you a 10% discount. You're paying my consultation fees, and then you're demanding what you want. So you're not going to get it.
Right. So I think this is something like, all those high level CEOs say that if you're hiring, intelligent people, you cannot tell them what to do. You take their advice. So you are paying for my services. Why not use my services? Lakshmi, your hand is still raised.
Oh, sorry. No,
You wanted to say something, or
no, I just
it's my
said
mistake?
that it depends. Some people accept, some people don't. But I guess as a professional, you have to give your
recommendation.
recommendations in terms of the type of frames they select.
Right.
You can give them options so that they have options to select from. Otherwise, they think that you're just
No,
pinpointing.
of course, Lakshmi. I mean, I sounded rude here. It's not that rude when I'm actually at the dispensing area. I mean, finally, at the end of the day, we want patients and customers, right?
Yeah.
So it's a thin balance as to how
Yeah,
much you want to drive and patients inclination as well. So Kulbhushan,
There's a
coming to you.
question, Nilesh. I don't know whether you want to take.
I'm definitely coming to those. Let me just ask Kulbhushan first, and then we'll move on to the question from the audience. So Kulbhushan, coming from the corporate side, I'm sure you have so much experience. You would have probably gone to troubleshoot also various cases, and there are different types of lenses also. So would you just throw some light on what you have learned in so many years, specifically with different types of lenses, advanced lenses, etc.
The good part about the technologies what you're talking about today. So because we have just because of Anita ma'am, we are able to know the scientific part of the dispensing, and the good part to know is that in case you want to dispense lens in the best possible way, you need measurements in place. So the good part which is happening now because of the digitalization which is happening in, we do have good set of instruments which are there which can help us in taking all the measurements, key measurements which are required to dispense a pair of glasses in the best possible way and with the least amount of time. So the technology is enabling us to do that very well. And there are various platforms through which we can do that very well. So whereby we do have now by the virtue of the technologies we have handheld devices which are there through which you can do that very well. And also there are standalone units which are there which can do the work pretty well. And the good part is that we are not compromising on the accuracy. And the other part is we are taking things much faster. The number of let's say process, the measurements which have been taken in through the system can be more. So that the good part, what can be done now with the lenses is we talking about the lenses itself. So there are different set of lenses which are there, talking about from universal designs or customized design or personalized design. So the good part is that with all the new gadgets in place or new technology in place, we can take measurement much faster, and the process can be more accurate and less time consuming also at times, whereby people do want to have the best lens in front of their eyes, but they don't want to spend that much time.
Correct.
So the good part is that can be also saved, and the entire thing can go hand in hand.
Awesome. So just before we proceed, a quick announcement. We will be posting a survey, and you have to complete that. Once you complete the survey, then you will get the attendance certificate. And we're just taking a few more minutes and maybe a couple of questions. I think there's a question from Shivam. Any one of you can take it. It's open to anyone. How frame shape affects visual comfort, especially in oblique cylinders? In fact, specific to oblique cylinders. Anyone wants to take that? Does frame shape have any relevance to visual comfort in oblique cylinders?
So
I personally feel, Anita, you start.
Go ahead, Yashwant. Go ahead.
No, I personally feel it is not related to the frame shape. At the most, the edge thickness can be controlled by choosing the appropriate shape. It's more to do with the asphericity in the periphery rather than the shape of the frame. Would you like to add to it?
I kind of agree to that, because visual comfort is based on the sensitivity of the eyes as well.
Right.
So most of us are, head movers. Some of them are eye movers. So it is with oblique cylinders, the performance of the lens at the periphery is what matters. If a person's eyes are pretty sensitive and he keeps rolling his eyes to look at objects, he might suffer from aberrations and off-axis cylindrical error, which adds up to his already existing oblique cylinder. So that will kind of cause visual discomfort. But you cannot be generalizing this factor, because it is depending upon each patient, right? So some are sensitive, some may be less sensitive to that. It is immaterial. Frame shape has nothing to do with this. It is more of the ophthalmic lens performance at the periphery that is significant.
Okay. And it will also depend on how well the lenses are fitted, right, in the frame.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So I have this is my Lakshmi, are there any questions on either Facebook or anywhere which I'm missing?
No, I just.
If not, I had one question.
You go ahead, then after that I'll ask.
Oh, you also have one?
Yeah, and I also wanted to tell for people, அரவிந்த்ல இருந்து யாரெல்லாம் அட்டென்ட் பண்றீங்களோ ஏதாவது கேள்வி இருந்தா கேளுங்கப்பா, no problem.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with whatever she said. So
I can speak Tamil. நீங்க தமிழ்ல கூட
yeah,
கேட்கலாம். நான்
yeah,
answer
we have Anita who will speak
தமிழ்ல
Tamil.
கேளுங்க, ஏதாவது
Correct.
கேள்வி இருந்ததுன்னா கேளுங்க, கூச்சப்படாம கேளுங்க, யார் வேணாலும்.
Correct. So among 4 of us, we will at least cover 6 to 7 languages.
Yes.
Good. So my question was, maybe any one of you can start. See, typically whenever we try to tell people the correct practices, no, there is a resistance. लोग क्या बोलते हैं? हम ऐसे ही करते आए अभी तक. We've always doing. I've always been doing like this only. We have never had any problem. Now why are you telling me this? So how do we handle this? This is a very typical question in any correct practice.
Change is always difficult, Nilesh. We are heading towards a regulated environment. Sooner or later, you and I have to stick to these rules and
Correct.
regulations, and we have to stick to best practice standards, whether you
Okay.
like it or not. Record keeping is one thing which is often neglected by the vast majority. We feel that record keeping is meant only for high-end prescriptions or maybe contact lenses alone, not for general examinations.
Right.
So we are all going to be behind bars if we claim that ab tak to we are fine and kya hoga, ya that kind of attitude.
Right.
High time, even prescription writing, that's what I'm saying. We have to stick to these standards, even 2 digits after the decimal. Ye habit hum mein hai nahi. Majority of us are still doing what we are used to. Kuch nahi hua, aage bhi kuch nahi hoga, but aage bahut kuch hoga if we are not going to be following these.
So now it's no more your choice and no more your experience or whatever. It is mandatory.
Have to follow this. This
It's
becomes
mandatory.
Anita, a lot of students are watching this. Don't scare them, otherwise they will not enter into optical dispensing. They would not want to go behind bars.
Yeah, that's true. लेकिन कहीं भी जाएंगे ये करना ही पड़ेगा, whether
You
it's
have
contact
to do
lens
it
or
anywhere.
anything,
If you
even
are in this
refraction.
profession, there's no escapism, right? If you want to be an optometrist the rest of your life, you better start it in the right foot.
Pull up your socks.
So I want to show you something.
Huh.
Anita, you showed that slide about the incorrect bend on the ear, right? Which was hurting.
Yeah.
So now we use so many gadgets to do the markings and calculate the pantoscopic tilt. But see what I have here. So this gives the most accurate bend.
Okay.
So the normal technique is, we just bend it with the hand. So your right and left bend don't match. But here I can actually measure how many millimeters or how many, it's in millimeters. Yeah, how many millimeters I want the bend to be. So there are different angles at which I can bend.
Wow.
So just put the,
Nice.
if I have a frame, I'll show you.
You can take the sleeves
You
out.
can
and
use
do
yours.
that very well.
If I use mine, then I will not be able to see, sir.
Prasad has raised his hand, so I don't know.
Yeah, we'll just finish this and then we'll move across
Nice.
to Prasad.
Very nice.
So I
Yeah,
can give a bend.
that's very cool, huh?
So very useful gadget.
Very cool.
And I think would have costed me about 50 rupees or 100
I know, it
rupees
is
at
so
most.
simple and yet so effective. This is what I like about things, simple and effective.
Yes.
What's the name, Yashwant sir?
There is no name, boss. I got it 20 years back, but it's available in Mumbai.
You can get
and
it
it's
from the market.
made by Wayne.
Prasad. If you
Prasad, you have to go to the shop and say, "Wo de do."
when
Nah, mom, nahi, wo,
you
wo.
go to wholesalers, definitely
Right.
somebody will help you with this.
Okay. So is
Okay.
it the one, or you also have any other question or comment, Prasad? Or
No,
that was it?
I just want to comment quickly.
Bol, bol.
The presentation was really nice, and as you rightly said, as usual, Anita was rocking right from first slide to the last one, and it was really refreshing to have all these slides going through the dispensing part, and you rightly mentioned a long time dispensing part we are going through. So, but it was definitely learning and a lot of insights from Yashwant sir. And I agree with the vision column, what he really specifically mentioned that everyone should have that vision column on top. But finally, just to add it, no matter how much effort we put it on the dispensing part, and as Yashwant sir said, it's not our job right from the first step when the customer or patient comes to it till dispensing. But I think even after that, it's more important when it comes to troubleshooting. Because no matter how much effort we have entered in doing refraction, giving the best selection of the frame, putting no matter what best lenses they have, but if something goes wrong and patient is not comfortable, you have to also step in the same way, rather more careful way in giving the troubleshoot and to make sure that patient goes really comfortable even after that, and make sure you also follow up that. It's not that you have done the adjustment, the troubleshoot done, but then you make sure you call that patient or reach to that patient after 3 days or week or so, and make sure it is comfortable. That really gets appreciated by the patient.
Thanks, Prasad. Anyone has any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I think we are
I
on
have
time.
one last question.
Yeah, Lakshmi, go.
I want to ask Kulbhushan. Kulbhushan, since you generally travel in the market and all of that, right? How do you find, like, how many mistakes come in terms of blank size?
Ma'am, if you talk about the experience practitioners which are there, whereby you usually
asking for blank.
Yeah, so whereby for them, ideally we don't get any as such problems. But yes, sir, for the new beginners which are there and which have just started and which doesn't know about the concept as such. So whereby for them, the rejections could be as high as about 20 to 30% or even more.
My God. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they'll keep on. So whereby to make their practice more profitable, they'll lose most of them in the starting steps.
Oh.
So it's all more important that we do pay attention to the science behind the dispensing, so that we get a good lens altogether, so that we can fix it and give it to the customer.
Wonderful.
And I think there is, see, I just love the way she covered all the aspects, especially starting from lens measure and all of that. I feel, you know, there should be some this thing that makes it compulsory for all these things to be there, especially a pupilometer. Pupilometer and lens measure and all are basic things that every dispensing person should have, right? If going by the standards, and even if you look at even the cost of the lenses that people are dispensing, you need to do a good job, because somebody is really putting their hard-earned money into buying that pair of lenses. So I feel there should be some guidance in terms of all this being made compulsory when it comes to optical dispensing, because somebody is really investing a lot of money into that pair of spectacles to buy. So I feel, there should be some accountability somewhere when it comes to these things. I mean, it's just a comment. Anita and Yashwant can comment on that.
But I think it's coming anyway now with, whatever regulations we are going to have. It's becoming mandatory anyway. Anita has already scared people enough, so I'm not going to give it back to her. But I think it is just around the corners, and we will have to start doing that.
Kulbhushan, I have another question for you.
So
now this is the pen that we use sometimes to mark the IPD, the pupillary centers. So now, I have seen many times that there are optical dispensers who are not very confident about their markings. They select a pen which has got a diameter of almost like 3 millimeters. So then they are covered. Humne to mark karke diya tha. Now the lens is not suiting, so you take care of it.
I'll also
so
add
how many
to it
such
that
cases have you seen?
So whereby the cases are going down, and the good part is the due amount of trainings which are happening across regions is helping ECPs, so that they can possibly think of the best possible ways to dispense a pair of glasses, especially when they are doing and dispensing a pair of progressive lenses, especially. So whereby the good part what you raised is that now we are asking all ECPs to use markers which are as fine as possible, and the good part is that and the other part is not so, whereby if you see also in some cases they only use a marker, they don't use a pen touch. So whereby they are not marking the Purkinje image which is there, which is normally seen and which need to be marked. So whereby we are also, whereby if you're going by the protocol, there are many things which have been told and which have been, let's say which are conveyed, but yes, things are changing, and things are changing at a very fast pace, and we are hopefully that
which is heartening to know.
Yashwant,
things are changing for better.
In fact, it should be more of a fitting cross than a dot. Fitting cross solves the problem, right? And use of pencils also.
In fact, Anita, we've got a better system. We make a dot and then we use white pencil to mark a plus. Because that's white plus is more clearly visible on the black iris or brown iris.
And then
so even there are graticules also which are there, which can be added onto the frame. So which can be of different contrast color, so that in background you can see them very well. So there are various ways. There are various ways to do that very well.
So we'll take one last question from Paula.
It's not a question, it's just a compliment to Anita ma'am, that how she said it is not just about passing the examination, learning the datum system and the boxing system. And ma'am, I through my experience, when we were students, we actually never learned what it is and what is the implication. And jab retail mein aaye, when we started, pass out hone ke baad, we had to spend 6 months to learn what actual dispensing is. So maybe through this platform, because a lot of students are also there, you can just give a message that colleges also should, keep those small dispensing kits to make them understand what the implication is, so that they learn at the time when they do their internship and they come out. So that was one thought.
Yeah, I think that's a great thought. And we have, the corporates also, industry also, so maybe they can also take a note of that. I remember when we were together, Anita, you would remember at BVP, we used to have all those necessary kits, and we used to do workshops with our students also. So if that is not happening, I think that should happen, because that gives a some baseline level of knowledge and skills to the patient, and then when they start seeing more patient, of course that gets refined, but at least they can start practicing on each other and things like that, so they are better prepared to face the patient. Absolutely. So I agree with you, and I think that's a great suggestion, Paula, and Kulbhushan would have noted it already. So on that note, I'm going to thank everyone. Thank you, Kulbhushan. Thank you, Yashwant, for your experience, sharing your experience and insights. And once again, thank you, Anita, for just being yourself. I think that's more than enough, and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. Lakshmi, over to you. Done from our side.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody. I think Shivam wants to know about FBDO. You can definitely write to Anita, and
she'll be happy to share
about FBDO.
Shivam, see what FBDO has done to Anita.
That's why he's already inquiring, no?
So, Arvind Lane, attend பண்றவங்க எல்லாருக்கும் ரொம்ப thanks. I hope this was helpful. Did you find it helpful? Helpful irundadappa? At least you can say
just something. Do your thumbs up if you agree with Lakshmi.
Oh, okay. I can see from the auditorium, all of them doing this.
Good.
Thank you. Thanks for attending. And this is coming to the closure of Knowledge Plus. So Kulbhushan and Anant Lakshmi, if you can put your video also on. It's without your support, we really wouldn't have, had this series of lectures. And Anita herself, I think, attended a couple of them. I did see her in the audience in 1 or 2, I think. So Anant Lakshmi, your face is fully black. I don't know why. Either you remove the screen behind or something. I don't know, some change you have to do. And you have
you need to change the optics of
correct, of the So thanks a lot, Anant Lakshmi. Thanks a lot, Kulbhushan, for all your support that you have given to us to make this a success. Anita, you've already become a star. I'm getting all messages saying great presentation, wonderful, very well covered, and all of that. So thanks to you as well. And the marathon race that you ran for 45 minutes, keeping in mind Nilesh will give you a timer at the end of it.
ऐसे ही बदनाम किया है मुझे.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot, Lakshmi and team. I think the journey has been memorable. So thanks a lot for all the speakers, even the past sessions. I really should say that you did a fantastic job. I'm sure the participants would have gained a lot from these sessions. Let us plan for more sessions in the coming days.
Yeah, Usman was there. I don't know whether he's still there. I think Usman session was also a great hit.
Very good session, yes.
We had a very young optometrist called
Sri Vidya.
She was also awesome. And then we had Nielsen present, and of course Pancham in the beginning. That Pancham's though, it was, everybody just loved the session. So thank you. Thanks to all the speakers till now. Thanks to Anita and Eslor for, putting this whole thing together. I'm sure we'll be back. No, Anant Lakshmi, what do you say?
We'll be back. Let us plan something. Yes.
Yes, and Lakshmi ma'am, just to add to all the viewers that these sessions will be available as recorded sessions in OCI YouTube channel, so they can access it and pass it on to their peers.
Great.
Yeah, so we'll send you the link to people who have attended, the students who have attended, and maybe the school faculty also who have attended, so that I think for their students it will be very helpful.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Nilesh.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye.
Star, Nilesh.
Bye.
What do you say, Anant Lakshmi? Star of Knowledge Plus, isn't it? Overall star of Knowledge Plus, Nilesh.
He's a hero, yeah. Come on.
Yeah, correct.
Come on, Anita.
Come
Ananta,
on,
you just made my
yeah.
day. Come on.
I know.
Okay, guys.
Thanks,
Take care
Yashwant.
of
Thanks a
yourselves
lot. It
and
was very good.
Okay.
Thank you, Yashwant.
Bye,
Thank
Ananta.
you.
stay
Thank
safe.
you, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye, Anand. Yeah.